Hello, Ron. We are here with another episode of Ask Ron. How are you doing today?
Outstanding.
Good to hear it. Let's go ahead and get these set of questions off. We'll kick it off with Hector Quiles from Massachusetts. Start with, hey, Ron. I've been at it since December 15th, 2020, and I've made 27 calls to the date of this post, and I've only been hung up on once. Now, when the individual hung up on me, I was sounding off the benefits of the no script. How many times have you had the phone hung up on you when making your closing calls?
Hector, I don't think I've ever been hung up on. I don't make the closing calls today. My team does. But if you have called 27 people and you're not getting any response, I'm going to guess you probably need work on your call. Since I don't know what your calls are like or how well you're trained, I'm only guessing here, but I'm guessing you're making some of the mistakes, probably begging, which is one of the biggest ones, or talking too much or talking too fast. Best thing you can do is make sure you start recording these calls and then playing them back to yourself, and you'll probably see your mistakes immediately if you're making any, and work to correct them. That's the best way I know to get good on that phone, because getting that call is really the only thing keeping you from getting more deals. And it takes practice, but you got to know what to practice at. You got to know what to fix. So you can't do that until you play it back. You cannot hear yourself. You cannot hear your mistakes while you're talking. So if that's the case, work on that. But the real thing you need to focus on is getting better quality leads than what we deliver you on the Go Club site. Now, look, you've seen us do events where we do live deals, I'm sure, and we get deals from those leads every time we do those events. In fact, we got one coming up on January the 7th. We got a 5-hour thing where we'll do some deals that day. And then we go on January the 20th, we got another 3-day summit coming up where we'll do deals all 3 days. And they all come mostly from those leads on the Go Club, but they are the lowest common denominator because they're people who advertise on the internet. Get people to call you. Do everything you possibly can to get people to call you, and you'll see a big difference in those calls. And by the way, one of the guys we're going to have at the summit on the 20th, I don't know if he's talking on the 20th, but during that 3-day summit, has got outstanding software program where you can literally generate leads sitting at your home on just about any kind of targeted list that you want, and then contact them and let them call you. I mean, data on over 2 billion houses all over the United States. And anyway, just stay tuned. His name is Don Falcon. Keep an eye out for him during the summit. But no, I've never been hung up on that I can remember. But if you did get hung up on, you'd never do business with that person anyway, so don't worry about it.
That's right. Very good. So on to his second question. Would paying a seller's mortgage by way of direct deposit be a bad idea?
I wouldn't do it. I don't want any bank to be able to take money out of my account because, number one, it's hard to stop it. Sometimes you have a month or two delay, and I just don't want to do it. I want to send, either you send a check in, or you send a wire in, or you do electronic transfer, which is the way it's usually done today. But you just got to make sure that that loan number is on that check, or however, whatever you send it in by. And I would add the seller's name to it as well, and make sure it's applied to that debt. What you don't want to do is ever send money to a bank and not have that loan number on it so they can identify it properly, or it's going to go into lost check heaven, never to be heard from again. And you're going to have a hard time proving the payment was made. So you want a written record every time you make a payment, but just make sure the bank knows where to put it when they get it.
Very good. All right, so we're on to Fernando Diaz from Connecticut. His first question out of 2 is going to be, have I heard credit unions are good banks that are willing to sell directly to investors? Is that true?
Well, I don't know, Fernando, because I really haven't bought any houses that I can think of from credit unions. But I got to believe that there aren't very many of them that credit unions own to begin with. They're really not in the mortgage business per se. But that's a question you'd have to ask them direct. I doubt you're going to have much luck buying them directly from credit unions if they even have them.
Very good. Next question for Fernando is, are banks willing to negotiate with investors? I have talked to an asset manager, but I didn't get very far. Do you have any specific banks that would work better with it?
They are not. They list them with realtors so that the realtors can take all that burden off their back. Talking to a bank is like talking to a post. In fact, probably better because at least you don't have to go through voicemail hell to talk to a post. So you really need to develop relationships with realtors and let them know you want these properties as soon as they hit the market. I was did have a conversation like that with a realtor yesterday in my office with my team, and we were going through all of the properties that he pulled out of the MLS, and I was working with him on how to get them out of the MLS and so forth. And we created a relationship. Now he'll be looking for stuff for me, and of course, anything comes into his firm, I'm sure I won't be the only one to get it, but at least he'll get it to his A list, which I hope I'm on. And I've seen times when you could buy big blocks of properties from a bank, but honestly, that's not going to happen anyway, because today they just want to list them and get rid of them, and they don't even want to talk to you. They don't want to talk to me. They just are not in that part of the game. So we got to work with the realtors to buy properties from banks.
Got it. That was a good answer for Fernando. We're going to move on to Mr. Ed Funderburk from North Carolina. He's got a scenario of different tenant buyer things. So it's about 5 different questions. The first one, if seller retains ownership, can they qualify for another purchase?
You mean buyers? Oh, I'm sorry. So no, what I think is if the loan stays in the seller's name, can they qualify for another purchase? And the answer is it depends, because the loan will stay on the seller's credit. Therefore, the debt will be there. Therefore, the debt will count against them on their debt ratio when they apply for another loan. However, if you bought the house from them on a wraparound mortgage or deed of trust, then they have proof, which is the note recorded on public records, that they are receiving the same amount of money that they are paying. So it's a wash. So the income will wash out the debt, and the bank should give them credit for it and not cause a debt to income ratio. Sometimes they want a little seasoning, several months, sometimes up to as much as a year, but that's up to the individual bank. So with that wrap around mortgage in place, they should qualify as far as debt ratio goes.
Got it. All right. So the second one, what happens if the tenant buyer walks?
Well, you grab your spouse and you go out and you go buy an expensive dinner somewhere and celebrate. That's what happens. Because if a tenant buyer walks, that means they've decided to walk away from your multi-$1,000 non-refundable deposit. And now you get to go lease option the house out again and collect another multi-$1,000 non-refundable deposit. So that's not a bad thing. I mean, that's maybe a little hard for you to understand. When a tenant moves, that's bad. No, that's not bad. It's not bad at all. Only about 10% of my tenant buyers buy. The rest of them will ultimately move. But remember, it's their choice, not my choice. They decide to forfeit their deposit. And that's also why you need an attorney to close these things, to make sure it's crystal clear that that deposit is forfeited and it's all in writing. And so there's no argument whether that's the case or not. So, you know, don't be upset. Be glad. You did everything you're supposed to do. It's up to them if they want to move.
Very good. Third question for Ed. What happens if the buyer trashes the house?
Well, you'll fix it. You'll fix it because hopefully you've set aside some money to take care of things like that. It's called reserves. You don't have to spend every dollar you get out of them big deposits. And the thing you're probably not thinking about, Ed, is though that you're thinking about tenants, you know, those folks who have a hard time raising the first month's rent and maybe a month's deposit. That's not what we're renting to, sir. We're renting to tenant buyers, totally different mindset. They've got a big dog in the hunt. They got skin in the game. They got thousands of dollars sitting there. If they don't pay the rent, they lose that money. But remember, I didn't tell them to move. They called me and told me they were moving. They got no reason to trash the house. They're not mad. I'm not mad at anybody, and they shouldn't be mad at me. I've done everything I said I was going to do. So that's just a rare case, and we weren't worried about it. It doesn't happen much, but if it does, you just fix it and you move on. That's why you always want to have some reserves sitting aside. And remember, it won't be long. You go fix it and get a new tenant buyer, get thousands of dollars from them.
That's right. All right. Fourth question for Ed. What about homeowners policy? Does a tenant buyer just maintain a fire policy like a rental?
Ed, no tenant buyer can put a fire policy on a house they don't own. Okay, can't insure a house you don't own. And the only insurance that a tenant can get is to cover their furniture, which I could care less. Not my problem. If they want to get it, fine. If they don't, fine. But you'll need a landlord policy when you buy the property. And I mean the day you buy it, because that property, that policy from that seller is worthless after that deed transfers. So you got to go get a landlord policy or a non-owner occupied policy. We use REI Guard. They got good rates. They're national, and they don't care how you own the property. That's REI Guard. But you got to insure the property. You're the only one that can insure it as long as you won't own it. The tenant doesn't insure anything, nor do they care about what your insurance says. Okay.
Got it. So the fifth and very final question for this edition of Ask Ron would be, it's a good question too. What happens if they stop paying rent? Do we evict them? And who pays for that, me or the seller?
Come on, are you asking me if the seller is going to pay the mortgage payment because your tenant stops paying rent? Get out of here. You know better than that. The day you buy that property, it's all on you, baby. You got no recourse on the seller whatsoever. So if the tenant stop pays rent, you're going to pay the payment until you get somebody else in the house. If you have to evict them, then you have to evict them. And don't forget, though, you're not dealing with a tenant. You're dealing with a tenant buyer who's giving you thousands of dollars, some of which you set aside for things like that, so you can sleep at night. You know, all of those things that rarely ever happen, but you used to talk yourself out of doing anything. Listen, there is no business where there is no way to lose. There is no such business. You find one, you let me know. You find a business there's absolutely no risk in, that has any way to make any money, and you know, maybe I should get in it as well. But your payoffs are so huge in real estate compared to your little old minimal risk, it shouldn't even be a concern of yours. You should be so busy doing deals you don't think about things like that. But again, set a little money aside. You don't even have to think about it. You'll be so proud of yourself if you actually have to dip into your reserve, because that reserve is there. Is that it?
That was it this week. Those are all of the questions that we have.
Well, you're getting this on New Year's Day, so happy New Year's. And I hope you get to work in 2021 and make it the best year. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what the new regime is going to do. Nothing we can do about it anyway. So all we can do is make sure that there's no recession in our house and get that cash flow up. But get to as many trainings as you can. A lot of them are free nowadays. Again, I've got one on the 7th. That's the 5-hour training for those of you who have not seen it. An hour of that is where we do deals live. And by the way, you can submit your leads ahead of time, get in there and get registered. Coming up pretty quick. Then on the 20th, same thing, 3-day summit, all new people in it, all new high quality instructors, but you can also submit deals in it as well. And we do live calls the first night and do a deal structuring session every day. So this is your chance to get us to actually do them for you. Both of these things are absolutely free. So when you get the email on it, if you haven't already, get registered, and I'll see you on those. And I'll see you this next week, same time, same channel.
All right, that's great. Thank you, Ron. Happy New Year.
You too.